Good morning and welcome, and thank you for joining with me as we continue through our morning devotionals. And as you know, if you've been following along, we are in chapter 11 of the book of Proverbs, and today we're going to pick up the conversation in verse 21, which reads in this way. It says, "Be sure of this, the wicked will not go unpunished, but those who are righteous will go free." It's really interesting, I think, because this is an issue that I think a lot of us have far more than we're ready to admit. Remember back in chapter 73 or Psalm 73, where Asaph said that he had almost given up his faith. He'd almost given in because he found that it seemed like the evil people, wicked people, sinners, had all the prosperity and all the blessings and all the riches. In other words, things are always going easy for them, he said. They don't seem to have any hardships. And he said, on the other end, here I am, a follower of God, trying to do the best I can, and I just go from one difficulty to another. And I know that many of you feel that way. You may be reluctant to share it with anybody. But nonetheless, I've had a lot of conversations in talking with other believers in counseling situations where that's exactly how they felt. They said, how come I'm trying to do the best I can and everything is going against me? In fact, I remember one young man whom I was counseling, and I had encouraged him to really commit himself to follow Jesus with all of his heart, soul, mind, body, and strength. And he said, okay, I'm going to do that. And about a week later, he got back with me and he said, I just sought the Lord with all of my heart. I was reading, I was praying, and my day was terrible. I went through a terrible week, and it's like Satan was on my back. And I just decided, forget it. I'm not going to seek the Lord because there's too many difficulties. Now, you may think that I'm making that conversation up. I'm absolutely not making it up. There are some people who not only think that way, but they're actually foolish enough to act upon it. And so, as I look back on it, I think to myself, as I saw the trajectory of his life and what came of it, I realized that he just went from one problem to another. And although he didn't feel the intensity of Satan in those moment-to-moment issues, when you looked at the trajectory of his life, and he eventually just passed away, it didn't go well for him. It was full of all sorts of problems and difficulties. And I think that that's where we come back to, what does God promise in his word? He says, I want you to have a certainty in your life that if the wicked do wicked things, they're going to suffer as a consequence of that. They're not going to go unpunished. It is not like God doesn't see it, or that God forgets about it, or that God is giving them a pass. He's not. It's kind of like there's an accumulation of garbage in their life, and it may take a while for the garbage can to begin to be full and then to overflow, and then to begin to stink up everything in the room, but it will get there. It's just a matter of time. And that's why I think when we look at the Christian life, we need to see it not as just simply a sprint from point A to point B, but rather it's a marathon that we're trying to get from point A to the end, where Z, and we finish the course with God's joy. So the thing I really like to stress is that don't be a short-termer. Don't think of your life in a short term. In the military, you used to always talk about people who were short-termers because they were near the end of their time in the service, and they began to really kind of not put out their energy into things. They weren't trying as hard as they did before. And we don't want to fall into that trap as Christians. It's tempting. I mean, as I've often shared, that here I am at 75 years of age. I'm pretty close to 76. And there are times where I've said to my wife, I really feel like I just want to sit down and relax and take it easy, and not have to work so hard. And then something inside of me says, and then what? Really, is that really what I want to do, is to spend the remaining years I have just relaxing and taking it easy? Or do I want to really kind of pour myself into the things of the kingdom as much as I can with whatever time I have? And I guess that's my encouragement. Because he says in the end, the godly will always go free. The godly will always find them walking in freedom. That doesn't mean that you will always have easy circumstances. Going free doesn't mean that you won't get arrested and put in prison for your faith. That's happening to a lot of believers. But what it means is, even in those terrible circumstances, they feel the presence of God and the freedom of God in a way that those who are holding them captive only wish they could feel. It was like just a message we got for a friend of ours who's going through an extremely difficult series of circumstances. And my wife and I have been praying that God would just kind of cover her and work things out and help her to be at peace. And she just sent that message to my wife today saying that the Lord had just given me such a deep peace and rest. She said it came to me at 3 o'clock in the morning, but she said, I just felt this peace of God. And we were just celebrating this and thanking the Lord because that's really what matters. It doesn't really matter as much what's going on around you or what's taking place in your circumstance as much as it is how you feel about that circumstance. Are you joyous? Are you heavy laden? Are you stressed? And believe me, I don't mean to sound judgmental because I can get overstressed and worked up as much as anybody else. I can become as worrisome or anxious about things just like you do. But the difference is, as a follower of Christ, I know that's not where God wants me to live. I know that Jesus wants me to live in this place of peace because he says, I have offered this, I provided this for you, and I give my peace to you. Whether I believe that or not will be evidenced by how I feel about things. Oh, again, that doesn't mean your heart isn't broken at times. It doesn't mean you're not in grief. I mean, today I was just praying for people in our life that don't know Jesus, and I'm fearful for their souls. Because one of the things that, again, tends to get neglected in the church is talking about the fact that people who die outside of Christ will go to hell for all eternity. And I'm really kind of tortured by knowing that these people are headed in that direction if they don't come to Christ. And yet at the same time, if I didn't believe that God could make a difference, I wouldn't pray. And I think that's the thing, that we can feel peace because we ignore everything. We can feel at peace because we compromise about everything. Or we can feel a peace that in the middle of the battle, we feel this rest in our soul. And that's really, I think, where Jesus wants to live. And I pray that that's what you'll ask the Lord to help you to do, to become aware of his peace that's available and to live within that peace every day. And when you lose it, to pray that God would help you come back and rediscover it. Well, God bless, go in his grace, and we'll pick up the conversation tomorrow. Thank you for being here.